talk about Ukraine. So I don't know if you noticed, but over the weekend there was a bit of a kerfuffle about some money. In fact, you may have seen this video. Glancing at that, you would assume is the Kiev Parliament, because you've got a whole bunch of politicians there waving a little Ukrainian flag. You will be shocked to learn, chaps, that's actually the Congress of the United States there.
I will be shocked. I've never seen it from that angle before.
Yeah, I think
it's weird.
Well, it's Thomas Massey, isn't it? So I think he probably filmed it himself. He sort of stuck it up on there. But if you're wondering why they're so happy and why they're waving the Ukrainian flag, despite the fact that they're in the US Congress, it's because they've just secured their next bonus.
Sorry for the interruption. I'm Father Calvin Robinson, and you can watch my Common Sense Crusade at 3 p.m. on Thursdays only on lotuseaters.com, where you can sign up for as little as £5 per month. Deus Vult.
With this money that's gone out.
It's so weird and freakish. There's certain things, certain images you see that happen in your own life. Like really iconic things like the Twin Towers coming down or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Trump coming down the escalator. Certain images. That's one of them. That's just bought and paid for shills, globalists, traitors, whatever you want to call it. It's bizarre. It's honestly bizarre. Something you didn't think even just a few years ago, maybe as much as 15, 20 years ago, you'd never dream you'd see that. Something like that.
Well, I mean, as an Englishman, I would only ever fly the English flag. I'm not going to disrespect somebody else's flag, but I fly my own flag.
Yeah.
But they're just
I think it's a bit upsetting as well that they've passed a bill worth billions of dollars, and the only flags they managed to get was the sort of pack of 100 for £6 off Amazon. Actually,
yes, it probably was off Amazon, wasn't it? I quite like the point that this chap makes. Ronan, quite a base chap. He says, that's a picture of a couple of very happy, cheerful Congress type people, smiling, grinning off their face. And he just points out there's no connection in their minds to what they're doing and young men dying in trenches. They just are not making the mental connection of what's going on here.
Yeah, smash cut from their grinning faces to drone footage of a dude trying to run away and then getting blown to smithereens.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Quite. I mean, I presumably in their mind they've got some sort of Hollywood image where the weapons that they send over just do their own thing and blow up. And
well, they've been told Zelensky is Winston Churchill and Putin is Hitler.
Yeah,
that's basically the narrative. I mean, literally, Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and stuff were saying that, weren't they? Last time Zelensky was over, he's the Churchill of our time. Are you mad?
I mean, you can go deeper on the whole Churchill question, I suppose.
Right? Yeah, is that so great? Yeah,
won't go into that now. This is an article from I don't know if anyone remembers this, but BBC. They used to be quite popular in this country, but anyway, they've done an article on this subject. Now, I'm going to put out a few quotes because I just thought they were a bit interesting. So, from the article, they say both Mr. Zelensky and head of CIA William Burns have said that Ukraine will lose the war without American help. This is true. Ukraine will lose the war without American help. It will also lose the war with American help.
Yes.
But that bit wasn't mentioned.
Well, quick take.
Yeah.
They've already lost.
Yeah.
It's a fait accompli. Yeah. Putin's troops are in the bit in the Donbass, in the bit of the territory he wants.
Yeah.
They've been occupying it for ages now.
Yeah.
They're not going to get booted out of there. Every offensive the Ukrainians attempt is just an abject failure.
Yes.
It's already over.
And they probably have to end up going into the bit that they don't necessarily want. They probably have to end up going right up to the Dnieper just to lock in the win. But, the deal could have been done months ago.
And they can't even make the argument that the Russian economy is on its knees, because I think somebody came out last week saying
Germany.
Yeah, it's growing faster than anybody in the G7. So it's actually doing rather nicely out of all these sanctions.
And it's it seems to me, largely an artillery war, and they're producing something like 7 times more artillery
and cheaper
ammo than the whole of NATO put together or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like it's over. It's over strategically.
Yeah, it's tragic. The BBC says that has been reinforced over 6 months by Russia taking more territory, since the peace deal was rejected, and other Western allies struggling to fill the gap left by Washington. Ukraine is now feeling the weight of American support once more. Well, I'd say the poor sods being rounded up off the street and being sent to the front line with a gun pointed at the back of their head if they don't go forward are feeling the weight of that American support. So I don't know if that's a good thing. And then this extraordinary line, and this is a really extraordinary line, this is not a silver bullet that will help Ukraine win the war, but extend its window to fight and keep the negotiation table at bay.
Keep the negotiation table at bay.
So keep peace at bay. This is all about extending the war to stop peace happening. Now, what do they mean? What do we mean by extending the war? Well, obviously, we mean until November the 6th, the day after the US election. If possible, 21st of January, 2025.
After the inauguration.
Yes. When it will be Trump. And, it's somebody else's problem. But that is what this whole thing is about, is we are going to give them enough weapon systems that we can get them to the other side of the US election, so it's not a problem for us. So it doesn't look like we got humiliated in Afghanistan and also Ukraine.
Yeah, the Americans can't lose 2 wars in one term. That's just bad PR.
There certainly are shades of Vietnam a bit here. Vietnam's a bit of a pet project of mine. I've never done an Epochs or a History Bro episode.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I will do it at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, for many, many years, I've been fascinated by Vietnam and Nixon. Actually, I've got videos all about Nixon on History Bro. Check that out. There's shades of that where for years, literally years and years and years, the Americans were just extending it, keeping it going, in the hope that they could bring Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Cong to the peace table in Paris, usually, and sort of wring good terms out of them. And it just never ever worked because their resolve was implacable. Yeah. So that whole strategy was doomed to failure from day one, and yet they stuck with it for years and years and years. Yeah, dropped millions of tons of ordnance on North Vietnam, and lost tens of thousands of American soldiers' lives. And that strategy completely failed. It's the same here. Putin's not going to suddenly go, "Oh, okay, yeah, here's great terms. Have all the territory back."
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
No, if anything, it's getting worse because the original peace deal was cede Donbass and Crimea. Well, it's not going to be those terms anymore. It's going to be like, okay, and these 2 regions, and soon it will be up to the Dnieper. So, I mean, you can keep dragging this out, and the terms you're going to get are worse. But anyway, from the article, the House vote had been delayed by Republicans for months, with some objecting to sending money overseas instead of dealing with the US-Mexico border issue. Well, that seems reasonable to me, to be honest. I mean,
that's trifling domestic policy issues. That's not going to get you in the history books.
Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, who said that he wanted to push these measures through, even if it jeopardized his position. So, priorities, globalism first, what my constituents and my members want very firmly second, if at all.
Well, he knows what side his bread's buttered. Obviously, his handlers, his overlords, whoever they are, have said, look, this is your agenda. These are your priorities.
He wouldn't say something like that unless he's got the next job lined up.
Right,
All my political positions.
Other conversations have been had. No. Yeah. On Saturday, it was passed by a comfortable margin, but those numbers obscure the increasingly sharp partisan divide, with 200 Democrats, all of them, basically voting in favour, and the Republicans more voted against, 212 to 101. 112 to 101. So that could spell trouble for Mr. Johnson. 3 House Republicans are already calling him to be ousted as Speaker. Well, yes, because you're advocating on behalf of powers other than the US and its taxpayers. So,
remember the so-called offensive Ukraine tried? Was it last spring or last summer? Was it? Yeah, just an utter failure.
Yeah,
but we'd sent them apparently billions and billions. America, not we.
Yeah,
I'd sent them billions and billions and billions. I don't even know the number. Silly number of billions of dollars worth of aid and things. And that offensive was just effectively an abject failure.
Yeah.
So, what makes you think that sort of the battlefield conditions have really changed?
Well, like I say, I think it's not about winning; it's about dragging it out until the other side of the election.
Well, it seems to be. It's just an exercise in money laundering, is it not?
Well, very much so.
I mean, how much money can they launder to Zelensky's people?
Yeah, well, funny you should ask that question, because my next article is this from Seymour Hersh, Trading with the Enemy, and it's got some great lines in this. So, of course, Seymour Hersh is very distinguished US journalist. He's a bit lefty, but
I'm surprised he's still around. He must be ancient.
Yeah, but he's proper journalist from back when that was an actual thing, before journalism became obsolete. So basically, the gist of this is that the CIA director Burns had to warn Zelensky to stop stealing so much money. So here's some lines from it. The issue of corruption was directly raised with Zelensky in a meeting in January in Kiev with CIA Director William Burns. His message to the Ukrainian president was, I'm told by intelligence officials with direct knowledge of the meeting, was like something out of a 1950s mob movie. The senior generals and government officials in Kiev were angry at what they saw as Zelensky's greed. So basically, he wasn't letting them skim as much as he was skimming. Burns also presented Zelensky with a list of 35 generals and senior officials whose corruption was known to the CIA and others in the American government. Zelensky's response was about 10 days later, he dismissed 10 of the most ostentatious officials doing nothing else. The 10 he got rid of were brazenly bragging about the money they had stolen, were driving around Kiev in their new Mercedes. So the ones who were really pushing it and making a show of it and bragging it, they got chopped. But the ones who just kept it a little bit on the down low, they were fine. Zelensky's half-hearted response and the White House's lack of concern was seen, the intelligence official added, as another sign of the lack of the leadership that is leading to a total breakdown of trust between the White House and some elements of the intelligence community. Hirsch went on to note that by one estimate, analysts from the CIA put the embezzled funds at $400 million in just last year alone. They also added that there will be no professional audits in Ukraine of this money. So just to put that in perspective, I believe the US has just hired 85,000 new IRS agents. So if you're an American taxpayer and it looks like you might have possibly not paid your £5.72 $5.72 on some crypto trade, you're going to get audited.
Yeah.
But 400 million to these guys, no, that's fine.
Zelensky's general and his generals and his family, they can have endless money. Got it.
Yeah, but basically, it was extraordinary. The CIA flying over there and basically saying, "Would you please keep your stealing to an appropriate minimum?
And would you please keep it under wraps?"
Yes.
Well.
It was like in Goodfellas when after the Lufthansa heist and Jimmy the Gent, is annoyed that all the other mobsters have sort of bought fur coats and a new Cadillac.
Right,
and he's like, just stop,
right, yeah,
just stop, at least for a few months, at least.
Yeah, just tone it down a bit. Now, the Ukrainian side of this, I think that they are basically complete amateurs when it comes to the whole embezzlement thing. In fact, I'm going to return to. I'm going to go to this Reuters article where they have this absolutely lovely line, which I had to include. Passage of the long-awaited legislation was closely watched by US defense contractors who could be in line for huge contracts to supply equipment to Ukraine and other US partners. So people like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop. Now, just by coincidence, those three names that I've just mentioned also happen to be the top spenders in lobbying dollars in Washington. Funny that.
What a coincidence.
Yes. And in fact, my central thesis of this whole segment, if it's anything, it is this. The purpose of this funding is not to win the war. The purpose of this war is to win the funding. You need to reorient it in your mind. When you think about it on that terms, like everything that's happening just makes perfect sense. But like your points that you were making earlier, well, clearly it's not to win a war because that's just not happening.
No.
Yeah. Well, we did a Brokenomics about Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where what you do, you give a foreign, or you coerce a foreign government, bully them into accepting.
I'm about to connect those dots.
Crazy amount of aid, but they have to spend it with you.
Yes, I'm absolutely coming to that. So anyway, so that's my general gist of what's going on. If you prefer to receive your information in meme form, I'm going to go with that. It's not that this system is broken; it is working exactly as intended. Just before we came on air, so I didn't have a chance to include it, but Voldemort Zelensky put out a tweet, and basically he said he's been speaking with diminutive, unelected Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who's just informed him that they're going to be sending £500 million worth of Storm Shadows and missiles and other things over there. So at least the defence contractors in the UK are getting a taste of this as well. which is obviously important. So anyway, what's in this Ukraine bill? So let me answer your point about how the money circulates, because that is an important point. When we say 61 billion going to Ukraine, it's not, is it? I mean, it's a bit of that will go to Ukraine, and a bit will end up going to Zelensky's coke dealer and the general's Merc dealer.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, most of the money stays in the US. So most of it goes directly from Congress straight to the defense contractors.
Yeah.
So let's break this down slightly. And I'm quoting Reuters here. The largest of the four bills in dollar terms allocated 61 billion to support in its Ukraine. Breaking that down, it includes 23 billion to replenish US weapon stocks. Right, so that's straight to the defense contractors.
Yeah.
11 billion for current US military operations in the region. Well, that's straight to either the government itself or, again, the defense contractors.
It goes to the DoD. Yeah.
It also includes $14 billion for the purchase of advanced weapon systems. So again, those weapon systems might end up in Ukraine, but first the money goes to the defense contractors, and then they ship a box out over there. So what are we up to now? Was that? Oh, that's like 50 billion of basically it stays in the US. Mainly via the defense contractors, and the rest, I presume, ends up in the pocket of Zelensky and paying some civil servant wages. But that's about it. But it wasn't just Ukraine that they were voting on. There was a little bit of Israel in there as well. So Israel is going to get 26 billion. 5 billion will go to replenishing Israel's missile and rocket defense systems. So again, box turns up in Israel, but I'd imagine that 5 billion is going straight to the defense contractors as well.
It's £5 billion, or $5 billion.
Yes.
It's funny.
Is that sort of one volley from the Iron Dome? Is it? So that performative strike from Iran has basically cost the US taxpayer $5 billion.
Well, I think
rearm.
I heard that just Israel spent $1.3 billion on that strike from Iran.
Yeah.
So I suppose you get another two or three of them.
3 or 4 goes at that.
Yeah, because obviously they're going to ramp things up rather than dial it down. So, they're going to be needing those systems well stocked. All right, so
according to Ben Shapiro, they can protect themselves. They don't need America. Isn't that what Mr. Shapiro said?
So that's one of those
dualities. They can fight their own wars, can't they? I thought, why do they need more billions? I don't understand.
But my understanding is, yes, absolutely, they can defend themselves. 2, the US must support them, because otherwise they won't be able to defend themselves, and both of those seem to be true at the same time. I don't fully understand how it works, but it's one of those dualities.
I mean, they're the best allies, aren't they? So what's 5 billion amongst friends?
Well, yes, especially when it goes straight to the defense contractors. Like the extra 3.5 billion will go to purchasing advanced weapon systems. So again, defense contractors box turns up presumably.
A lot of that will disappear into R&D.
Yes.
So that will be black boxes in the Nevada desert that you go, like the Zumwalt class and things like that. And you go, well, we spent $100 billion on a destroyer, and it doesn't really work. But lessons learned.
Oh, and by the way, the CIA now have some black sites that are well funded somehow. $1 billion to enhance weapon production, and 4.4 billion to other supplies and services provided to Israel. So they might actually get a bit of that. Then there's more. We haven't run out of the billions yet. So there's an Indo-Pacific aid bill that goes in there, which is 8 billion to counter communist China and ensure a strong deterrence in the region, which I presume is going to the defense contractors as well. 3.3 billion allocated to submarine infrastructure, and 2 billion in foreign military financing for Taiwan. Okay, well, at least Taiwan get 2 billion out of the 8. But rest of it.
It's always funny when you've got to spend billions of pounds defending yourself against your primary trade partner.
Yes.
It's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah, and the US general made this point a while ago. He was like, well, why are we borrowing trillions from China so that we can then build up our military systems by buying stuff from China to defend us against China?
Yes.
Surely that...
Yeah, millions of tons of Chinese tack can leave the South China Sea, but the Chinese Navy can't.
Yes.
And meanwhile, the national debt has just inched over, I think, 34 trillion.
Yep.
Just recently inched up to that, I think.
Yeah, what is it? Is $1 trillion every 100 days now?
Yeah.
Surely that's not...
Yeah. Well, their operational budget.
No, so...
Trillion.
Is it a trillion?
It could be.
It might be for the last one, yeah.
It could be true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
It makes no sense. It doesn't add up. It doesn't come close to.
That's not a monetary system. That's a scoreboard.
Yeah,
But I mean, we are in a
no bearing on reality.
we're in a debt spiral because what's happening now is it's not like you're borrowing money to invest, the good kind of borrowing, and it's not like you're borrowing to pay your current expenditure.
Yeah.
They're borrowing to pay the interest on the borrowing.
Yes.
So that's not going to end well. There's also a bit of a TikTok ban shoved in there as well, because I mean, of course, obviously when US lawmakers are doing things, they like to bundle everything in for whatever reason. So ByteDance have got to divest itself of US stuff because apparently TikTok is spying on you. Well, yeah, obviously TikTok's spying on you, but so is Google and everything else.
Facebook
And they are all spying on you.
On all our devices, if you've got a camera in it, the NSA, or in our case GCHQ or whoever, they can just look at you through your own camera at will. I don't know if that's completely true, but I think people like Snowden have said that, and no one has said no, that's definitely not the case.
Oh, they've done the opposite. Yeah.
So I think all devices can spy on everyone at all times. Is that not?
Well, that's. I mean, I don't use TikTok, but I wouldn't be afraid of it because I don't care if the Chinese spy on me because they're not my government. I'm much more concerned about my own government spying on me because they can actually mess with me, and they might. So yeah, there's a.
I always think it's funny those memes when they say like the big government are always, or the intelligence services are always after our data, and it's then the data, and it's just people just being normal or doing nothing, doing stupid. Not doing anything of any interest whatsoever.
There's a great one of the FBI agent with his head in his hands, and he's just like, day 37 of looking up the far right, and all he's done is read esoteric posts about Evola. I'm so bored of this.
Yeah.
I always feel sorry for the ones that get assigned to watching the various streams that we do.
Oh, yes.
Because they must bloody hate that.
Yeah, and to our GCHQ friends, hello.
I call them Gary. I just nicknamed our GCHQ handler Gary, so I just refer to him as that. I don't know if your name is Gary if you're watching, but I just call you.
Sorry, Gary. I am going to watch that old British transport film again.
Yes. There's also the 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act. Which basically means that they can steal the Russian assets and send them over to Ukraine so that they can then send the money to the US. Now, that is a massive mistake, that one.
Yeah.
Because, to put this into perspective, we didn't seize the German assets during even the Second World War, but we're doing it with Russia. Now, the reason that's such a mistake is because a lot of people trade in the US dollar because it's got that depth of liquidity. And then if you're trading in it all the time, you think, okay, well, I've got a big stock of dollars. What I'm going to do with it? I'm going to hold dollar-denominated assets. Whereas now everybody's going to think, well, hang on a minute. What if I upset the US? And it's a war. It's the Russian war today. But at the rate things going, it would be like if I'm not actively pushing the rainbow dildo heavily in my own preschools in my own country, well, that's going to be the thing that upsets the US.
Yeah.
So I'm going to. So I might have to trade in the US dollar because it's got that depth of liquidity today. But I'm going to hold my assets in something else.
Yeah. And I'll also try and instead of hold it in dollars, I'll try and hold it in gold or something like that.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and gold is flying out the door.
Yes, but the ETFs aren't, which is very interesting, isn't it?
Yes. Well,
paper
different topic, but yeah, that is
it's
you're right.
Interesting that dollars become just a risk, suddenly are a liability in the broader sense of the word.
Yeah.
It's just, is it worth my time and energy, or is it worth?
Well, and
just simply that the risk. It's too risky to have this anymore.
So the way it was designed was to be a riskless system, and now they made it a risk system. So yeah, people are going to get out of the dollar. So that is a small part of this whole thing, but that is a massive mistake. Regardless of where you stand on this. And also, there's a bit in there about Iranian sanctions. So they want to put more sanctions on their oil exports. The problem is the West has a phenomenal demand for oil. So the more you sanction the places that make the oil, all that actually means, and we've seen this with Russia, is that it gets arbitraged through India, and you just pay a markup on it.
Yeah.
So that is basically the make India buy more gold chains and have more bling bill because the oil is getting cycled back round again.
And meanwhile, the continental United States and Canada and the Gulf of Mexico has got tons of their own oil.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mad.
Well, and we know they can switch it on because they were running an oil surplus under Trump.
Yeah.
So the only reason they're net importers is because they want to be.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because they
the Democrats
hate Biden.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they could see that he was switching off U.S. domestic oil production. They were attacking all these other places, and they were like, "Okay, screw you. We're not going to help you get elected. Let's turn down the oil production." Yeah, totally. I also wanted to mention this, which is such it's such a child's level view, but I'm putting it up there just in case there's anyone in the comments who feels like making an argument like this. But you see this sort of stuff. So for those listening at home, this is an NPC who basically says, if you're against military aid for Ukraine, you are pro-Putin, pro-Russian government, pro-Russian invasion of Ukraine, pro-Russian genocide of Ukrainians, pro-terrorism, and anti-democracy.
It really is as simple as that. She says so. So
it is such a child's level understanding of what's going on. But I have to mention it because
Who is she? Is she anyone of importance?
no, but this kind of she might be, but I don't.
Plus,
I
there's
don't know.
loads of views on it. I mean,
Yeah, so but this one have been a bit viral.
If I could mention or point out that on lotuseaters.com, there's a very interesting conversation between me and Apostolic Majesty about Russian and Ukrainian history, going back to the 8th, 9th century.
Yes.
So if you did want a more nuanced view,
yes, then you would get by watching MSNBC.
it is out there.
Yes.
History didn't start in 2015.
Yes. Well, or February 2020, which is what a lot of these people think. I mean, I quite like Scott Ritter's response there, or against Nazis. I mean, it's just, war is bad, and this one needs to stop because they're just digging the hole deeper. That's broadly my view. So anyway, I will close off this segment by saying, if you are broadly of the view that blowing people up is on the whole a bad thing, then you might like working with us. And we actually have a couple of job vacancies up at the moment. We're looking for people who know technical things about buttons and editing stuff, and that, if that's you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, have a look on our website. We've got a couple of job vacancies up there. Do get in touch if that is your thing.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on the Medici family. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.